In this screencast, we are going to look at blood pressure regulation. We're going to start with short-term neural control. The body uses short-term neural mechanisms to control blood pressure by adjusting vessel diameter and blood distribution. This gives us a very fast response and helps us maintain adequate perfusion of our tissues. We're going to be looking at neural reflex arcs, including baroreceptors, chemoreceptors. You may remember those from 217. They send information to the medulla oblongata, which sends information to blood vessels and changes their behavior. So before we go too far, I want to remind you about the cardiovascular centers of the medulla oblongata. There's two different kind of types. There's the vasomotor center, which is all about maintaining vessel tone. And then there's the cardio centers, so the cardio-acceleratory center and the cardio-inhibitory centers, and these are going to adjust heart rate. Again, these short-term neural controls give us fast-acting regulation. It's going to adjust resistance, so that's going to be the diameter in the blood vessels, and distribution of blood. And it's really important when blood volume changes. So if you have an injury where you've lost a lot of blood, if you're laying down and you stand up, this is changing kind of the amount of blood in different parts of our body. And so these short-term neural controls help us maintain blood pressure during these situations. We're going to first look at the baroreceptor reflex. And so baroreceptors are pressure receptors that are found in our carotid arteries. When they sense increased pressure, they are going to activate the cardio-inhibitory center, right? And so that's going to slow down our heart rate. And they're also going to increase vasodilation. And so that's going to lower blood pressure overall. If we have low blood pressure that's sensed by those baroreceptors, it's going to trigger vasoconstriction, and that's going to increase blood pressure. This allows us to maintain perfusion in our brain when we get up very quickly. You might feel dizzy sometimes, but you usually don't feel dizzy for long, right? Because our body can account for that kind of change. But baroreceptors can only do short-term change. If we have blood pressure that is high blood pressure that's maintained over a long period of time, the baroreceptors just get used to that new high blood pressure. So they're ineffective in long-term control. We also have chemoreceptor reflexes, and so these are reflexes that respond to carbon dioxide, oxygen, and pH. And their response is to increase cardiac output and increase vasoconstriction. So that's going to increase blood pressure. And then we have higher brain centers, like in the cerebrum. And this is where we process things like stress and emotion. And these actually influence our blood pressure, right? So stress, temperature, emotion, all of these things are going to send information to the medulla oblongata and affect our blood pressure. The next part is looking at hormonal and renal regulation. So hormones regulate blood pressure in the short term by changing resistance, and in the long term by changing blood volume. So some of the key hormones that we're going to look at are epinephrine and norepinephrine. Those increase heart rate and vasoconstriction. Angiotensin II and antidiuretic hormone also cause vasoconstriction. And then atrial natriuretic peptide hormone is going to actually decrease volume. So these top three do things to increase blood pressure, and the fourth one decreases blood pressure. Renal regulation, our kidneys allow for long-term control of blood pressure by altering the amount of water that we retain, and that changes blood volume. There's the direct renal mechanism, And so the direct renal mechanism is when we have high blood pressure, our kidneys are going to excrete more water. When we have lower blood pressure, they're going to hold on to more water. So when I'm saying water here, I'm really saying we're excreting more urine or we're releasing less urine. And then the kidneys also are involved in the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. This is often just called the RAS syndrome. Sorry, the RAS system. And so low blood pressure is going to stimulate the kidneys to release renin. Renin converts angiotensinogen into angiotensin 1. And then angiotensin 1 is converted by ACE into angiotensin 2. And I just want you to kind of think about the fact that you may have heard of medications that are ACE inhibitors. And so while I'm talking about what the RAS system does, maybe think about why we would want an ACE inhibitor. So that RAS syndrome, I keep saying syndrome, system ultimately leads to angiotensin 2. And angiotensin 2 raises blood pressure in 4 different ways. It tells the body to retain salt. It tells the body to retain water. It increases thirst, and it also increases vasoconstriction. All of this is going to lead to increased blood volume and increased resistance, leading to an increased blood pressure. I hope going through this helps. I encourage you to look at this diagram that's in your textbook that goes over the direct renal and indirect renal mechanisms and goes into the factors in more detail than I do in this video. I just really want you to kind of get the key points here, and I think that hearing it come from your professor's voice helps it be a little bit more understandable. I look forward to seeing your questions about this system, and take care.